up a chair, the stories begin. Patrick and Randy are letting you in. From the desert lights where the big names are, it's Big Conversations, Little Bar. Athletes and dreamers, stars of the screen, leaders and builders, and all in between, sharing their journeys, how they've come this far. It's Big Conversations, Little Bar.
Welcome to Big Conversations, Little Bar, the Coachella Valley's favorite podcast, recorded live at Skip Page's Little Bar in Palm Desert. Get ready for another fascinating hour of meeting people who make the desert city such a spectacular place to be. Now, nestled in their corner booth perch, well lubricated and raring to chat, here's Patrick Evans and Randy Florence.
Thank you very much, Howard Hoffman. We are back here at Skip Page's Little Bar. I'm Patrick Evans. I'm along with my sidekick and good friend, spiritual guru, and a man that I really admire because you stepped up and rescued a dog after thinking about it for a very long time. Randy Florence is here.
Thank you.
I kept wondering when you were going to finally get off the pot and actually get the dog, because you talked about it for a long time.
I did. I'm older, though. It takes me a while to get off the pot.
And that brings us into 150 shows.
This 150. No, this is a special occasion. We are here to celebrate our 150th podcast. We've been doing this, God bless John McMullen, who's put up with us for 150 podcasts.
I'd say that's a two-way street. What? That's definitely a two-way street.
There's no doubt about it. I was trying to be kind.
Yeah, you have to. I don't.
That's also true.
You're the only one getting paid.
Not my this. What? Is there still a check coming? That'd be terrific. This is exciting. We've been counting down to our big 150, and here we are.
Do you remember sitting here for episode 1?
Yeah, of course.
With Skip?
He had more hair then.
Who?
He did. And yours was black, if I recall.
How long has it taken? How many years have we been doing this?
3. We just passed 3 years on February 1st.
Wow.
That was the 3-year anniversary.
It's pretty amazing. A lot of podcasts are very specific, and they have a time date to end. We never talked about how many episodes we're going to do. And
I've threatened to quit 5 times.
You have.
But
You moved to Carlsbad to try to quit.
You guys know that the average lifespan of a podcast is 8 episodes? Seriously.
So even my first one rocked past that.
I was just talking to Phil and Tracy about their podcast. They've discontinued their podcast now from CB Weekly. And, yeah, it's not an easy thing to do.
We should introduce Bruce.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Bruce is here.
This weird voice coming in.
Because we're going to do this. And Bruce has been a guest on our podcast. He was a guest on your original podcast. We wanted to do something different. So we thought we would bring Bruce in. You and I are going to be guests today. John is the official sidekick, and Bruce is going to host us.
Yes.
So we're just going to hand it off to you, Bruce. We know that you are our most loyal listener.
Thank you.
We frequently get critiques from Bruce. Here's some of the questions I would have asked. Boy, did you guys really drop the ball here.
Every week he's upset that I'm not morally safer.
Morally Safer got pretty safe towards the end of his life.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
No.
But Bruce is always very complimentary of the podcast, and we appreciate it. We appreciate that you enjoy it, and so we wanted to bring you in and just hand it off to you. So from here on out, for the rest of the 45 minutes, you are, sir, the host of the program.
All right. First of all, I probably have watched all 150 episodes. There might have been 1 or 2 I missed. I'm not sure, but it's part of my routine. And one of the reasons I've enjoyed it so much is because I sat in your places when I was with the Desert Sun. I was the people and entertainment editor for most of those years, and entertainment editor first, and then became a people editor. And what we have in common is that you find the most interesting people in the Coachella Valley, and you get time to talk with them in a relaxed manner. I was just talking with you guys earlier about what I loved about my job was I didn't have to have a lot of PR people who were setting me up with interviews to advance events. You guys don't talk to people to advance events. You talk to them because you find them interesting and you give them the time to expand and reflect. And that's what I did. I found that this Coachella Valley is like a library of people who've had fascinating experiences. And lately I've gotten to the point where I write about them when the library closes. I'm now Mr. Obituary.
Oh, shit.
That's why we brought him in,
Whoa,
Randy.
whoa.
Yeah. No, that's one of the things I do love about this podcast. On Eye on the Desert, which is a nice conversation, but for 3 minutes, and it is often event-driven.
Yeah.
And frequently, I'll invite people who've been on Eye to come and be guests here, because then we can sit down and have a lengthier conversation, and not just about that they're playing at the McCallum next week, or they're going to be putting on a charity fundraiser. So it's a nice, relaxed conversation. And I've always been, Randy and I talked about it, like, how much longer are we going to do it? And I said, there, I don't think, is an end to the stories that people can tell. There are always really fascinating people, and new ones show up all the time.
Yeah.
It's nice. And plus, we get to come, and Skip gives us drinks, which I really like.
Yeah, you always think that you're going to run out of
Yeah,
guests.
I ask them out every week.
Yeah.
Are we going to run out of guests?
Is this the last one? No.
Yeah.
No, we can always interview Randy and Patrick.
But everybody asks that question. Paul Tillett even used to think, the owner of Coachella, used to think that we're going to run out of headliners. And at one point, that was a crisis for Coachella. They've got all the big headliners. Then he suddenly realized there's a whole universe, and they all have everybody comes through the Coachella Valley. So you're less than 6 degrees of separation away from the world. And when you get them to sit down with you and they have that exhale that's the Palm Springs experience. You're exhaling all the tension out of your body, and you suddenly start laughing. And you guys, I don't want to give you guys too big heads, but really, you're a great combination, because I think every podcast kind of requires the actor and the reactor. And Patrick, you're the best at introducing and being able to do this off the top of your head. You make it seem so effortless, but I know how hard it is, because I've tried it and I've bombed. And then Randy is the reactor. Randy, you're witty. You do your intelligence, your research, and so you bring something that complements what Patrick does. And Patrick, you've got a lot of natural. I know you do research also. You say he's the researcher, but
He's pretty much the researcher.
yeah. But I mean, you for your job, you're always having to keep up, and it's a nice compliment to see you two. And
early on, there was a picture, Bruce, that I thought was just the perfect layout of our podcast, and it was a picture taken of me sitting here with about 5 pieces of paper and a glass of water and my drink and a pen and my glasses, and Patrick sitting there with his drink and some chips. And I thought, that says exactly everything about our podcast. And that was the day he said, get rid of those pieces of paper.
yeah,
You've reduced your number of papers.
I have.
But you still do great.
Taught me to be in a conversation rather than be in an interview.
that's so key. So many Q&As, the moderator is going from a list of questions, and they're not listening. And I think that's one thing that you've learned from acting, is that to be a good actor, you have to be a good listener.
Yeah.
And you have to be in the moment so that you can just improvise. And you guys do that really well. Sometimes you enjoy yourself so much, the guest kind of gets forgotten. but nevertheless, it makes it spontaneous, and that's what I like about things. And that's, again, the way that I did my interviews, is that you do a lot of research in advance, and then you're ready to throw the notes away and just have a conversation.
And oftentimes the guest will take you someplace where they want to go, and you got to be willing to let that happen. And on a podcast, it's fine. Sometimes on Eye on the Desert, I have to rein people in because we've got time constraints, and we're going a specific place. But here, it's fun when the guest just goes someplace where I didn't know they were going to go.
Yeah. The first time I was interviewed on this subject, you got me talking about something that I wasn't planning on talking about, and I realized I had never talked about it before. And it was really something, why haven't I been talking about that? We were talking about the planned World's Fair in Los Angeles and Ontario. I don't know if you remember that. It was a long time ago. But I actually was working for the Fontana Herald News, and I wound up talking to these people who were planning to put in the World's Fair in Los Angeles. And then they realized that there was too much traffic, it was too dense. They needed to have a location in the suburbs, and they used the Ontario Motor Speedway. And it was starting to be an amazing thing. It was going to be the biggest World's Fair since the New York World's Fair. And they had all these countries who were planning on bringing their technology to Southern California, including Japan was going to build a subway from Los Angeles to Ontario. That would have changed Southern California life. They had German technology that was going to take waste and create energy from it. All of that stuff was just disappeared because the Ontario City, well, this is a slight oversimplification, but it ended when the Ontario City Council voted that they didn't want a World's Fair disrupting their small town personality.
How'd that work out, Bruce?
Isn't that an amazing? That was a story that I did that I can't even find it online now.
Wow.
But we talked about it on this show, and it brought back a lot of memories. That's the type of thing we're talking about. You somehow you get into a conversation and it goes out into the weeds, and then out of chaos comes order, and you find something interesting to talk about. So
that's one of my favorite parts of every week is not on purpose trying to get people to go places that we didn't expect, but when you see that light go on in their eyes about a story that they just remembered, they didn't have any expectations of telling it on this episode, and yet they do.
Yeah.
Those are my favorite parts of this. We just listened to one a couple of weeks ago. Patrick and I were both crying at the same time. And I don't think that's ever happened on an episode. I've cried at some of them.
That was Ron Neiswanger.
Yes. Yeah. And that was a powerful story.
It was, and it was one of those where you dig into the meat of this person's career, but then he took us another place. And it was.
And I think one of the things that you've done well is you nudge them a little bit. And that's what happened that day with Ron. I don't think his intention was to go there. He nudged him a little bit, and he went there.
Sometimes you can tell, like, I don't know if we lured you in that direction, but sometimes you can tell a guest has a story, and they kind of want to tell it, but they're not sure they should. I can think of Michael Childers' story about what happened to him in the balcony of the Plaza Theater.
I don't know that Michael's really didn't want to tell that story, but he acted like he didn't.
Yeah, he did act like he did, which made me want to hear it all the more.
And then there was Frank Farino, who was so excited to talk about his first blowjob.
So, Bruce,
he lost his virginity. That was actually Frank Farino lost his. He was
okay. All right.
Yes.
So,
any stories you want to share, Bruce? First time?
About blowjobs? Is that what you're talking? Are you trying to get me to go there?
No.
Specifically not trying to get you to go there.
The other thing is, how many guests have you have said, can I say fuck? You go, and you're absolutely you can say fuck.
Why don't we just start handing them a card at the beginning of the episode? Yes, you can say this. Yes, you can say this. Yeah. Who did we first say that to, and how did that turn out?
Vince Pataki.
Yeah.
And he ran with it.
Yeah. He ran with it.
That was one of the,
Yeah.
Oh, man. He said a lot of really interesting things, including calling the Imperial Irrigation District gangsters.
Was it gangsters?
It
wasn't Nazis.
He had some fine terms for the governor, too.
Yeah, he had a few there, too. Yeah.
Yeah, he's probably not working on Newsom's presidential campaign.
Probably not.
I'm thinking.
And I was going to bring up what was the most blue phrase, and I thought Michael Holmes probably had.
Michael Holmes won that hands down.
Do you want to repeat that?
No, I don't. No, I'm not going to.
I have it written down right here.
Do you?
Yeah. He was talking about his vocal coach Dahlia Bach, who told him that he should go into business because he would never be a singer. Yeah. And Michael said, if I saw her today, I'd say, we can't spell cunt without you.
It's one of the most phenomenal lines. I don't know that I could ever bring myself
just
to use it.
Just a reminder. How many tequilas was Michael into by then?
I think
five.
Or five. But he had, and that was one of those that was a very memorable episode for all kinds of reasons. That line amongst it. But he is like intrinsically funny. Michael is just one of those entertaining people. You can't help but laugh when you're around him because it's not just that he's telling a funny story. He'll make an unfunny story funny.
You guys, based on your past and what you've done, probably you've seen this a billion times before, and it might not affect you, but there have been people in here that to me are just bigger than life. Michael Holmes was one of those people. But just people that if I wasn't involved in this podcast, I'd be sitting back going, oh my God, that's Michael Holmes. And we get to do this every week.
One of the things that's really fun to me about doing this podcast is that you get starstruck.
I do.
And it's really fun. And I'm not saying I'm jaded, but I interview people for a living all the time, and you don't.
Yeah.
And so it's really fun for me because you bring that kind of enthusiasm. Oh my God, I can't believe I get to sit here.
I get to sit here.
Like they're going to let me talk to this person.
Yeah, I get that way a lot. It's happened probably 130 of our 150 episodes.
Who are the
other 20, I apologize.
Yeah.
Oh, come on. At the top of the list is Nikki Boyer.
Oh. First of all, and you probably know this, I think we probably talked about it, the way we have no real process for getting guests. So, I know so-and-so. Do you want to? Randy said, I've got a get for us.
Yeah.
And he was super excited about it. And you'd been listening to the podcast. I don't remember how you ended up meeting Nikki. She moved to La Quinta.
Yeah, it was actually, this is another situation. Kim Richards in La Quinta, who runs the La Quinta Historical Museum, she has reached out to me that's how we got Danny Bonaducci. She had seen something online about him and reached out and said, hey, there's a podcast in town. And so it was the same. She didn't know Nikki, but she had seen something online and said, oh, you need to reach out to this person.
To me, your two best gets were Nikki and Paul Feig. Because Paul Feig turned out to be a great guest, but to get him right as he had a movie, Housemaid.
It's his biggest movie.
It was unbelievable. It was the biggest movie in the country, and you got him the week that it was breaking.
Yeah.
He should have been on The Tonight Show.
He should have been on The Tonight Show.
He probably was.
And he probably didn't mention this podcast. Oh, my God.
No, he was contractually, he wasn't allowed to.
He's already shooting the sequel.
Yeah.
And that happened super fast. And I know that he talked about it. He's like, I'm a studio guy. I'm like, so there was probably a plan for a sequel, but you got to hit a threshold before the studio will even talk to you about it.
Yeah. And
I remember I texted Paul when I saw the article where the Housemaid had gone over $300 million. I texted him and said, hey, congrats.
Yeah.
Don't spend it all in one place. And I don't get to keep all of it. You get to keep a lot of it. But he's already shooting the sequel. So that was a big get, I think, for this podcast.
But even that one, that was a referral.
Yeah.
Lola Kent called me one day and said, hey, would you like to interview Paul Feig?
And that's so circuitous because she's working with him not because of movies, but because she's helping him do events for his gin company.
Yeah.
And he's trying to gin up a company about gin.
Let's talk a little bit about why that episode was also special. It wasn't just a great get. This guy was so accessible. He was just like any other guest. Maybe a little funnier.
He was,
but
super funny.
This is another thing I like about your show. Anytime I learn something, whether I'm reading a story, a book, or listening to a TV show or a podcast, if I learn something, it gets an extra 10 points for getting me out of my malaise.
What's the highest score we've received? 10.
I'm in physical therapy mode. What's your pain level? 1 to 10. My pain level listening to you guys is a 1.
Is a 10, yes.
No, I'm saying to hear that he directed The Office, and what was the other show that he did?
Oh, Mad Men.
It started with Freaks and Geeks.
Freaks and Geeks was the first one, but
Bridesmaids.
I knew that. Yeah, Bridesmaids. That's
That
a
doesn't
movie.
get any bigger than that.
That's another one. He didn't get a sequel out of Bridesmaids?
Oh, they're talking about a sequel about Bridesmaids now.
Yeah.
But the movie that he got the most grief for was Ghostbusters, the all-female cast.
The female one.
And I loved his stories. I was reverential about the original, and I just thought it would be, I don't want to tread on that. Let's do something different. And it got all kinds of negative blowback.
Mm-hmm. But what I like, though, is he was honest that he was disappointed by that.
Yeah.
But he was also pretty honest that, fuck it.
Yeah.
I'm going to make that movie because I want to make that movie.
But he was talking about starting his comedy career as a stand-up comic at 15. And he said something that made me realize, it brought me back to 1979 because he was talking about, there was a TV show called Make Me Laugh.
Yes.
And you had all these comedians who were in a contest to make the contestant laugh in a certain amount of seconds. And there were so many comedians who got national exposure on that show. It was such a simple concept. And Bobby Van was the host.
Yeah.
And he mentioned Bruce Babyman Baum. Bruce Babyman Baum was like the star of that show. This is a grown man who would wear diapers. And he came out here and he did a show at the Comedy Haven when we had a comedy club. And I interviewed him after he had just been on stage, and he had killed, and he was hot, and he was improvising the lines to an interview. And we got into subjects like, how did you become a sex symbol with a name like Bruce? By constantly having sex.
Now we know how Bruce did it.
Everybody named Bruce.
But for him to bring that up, and then in the context of George Carlin was breaking new borders in comedy, and he was learning from all these. So it was a lesson in the development of stand-up comedy, and he's been around that long. He's still hot as a pit. He's never been hotter.
Yeah, now,
but he's been around long enough to add perspective to not just his own life, but to the culture. And that's gold. You get something like that's gold.
The one thing I found most interesting in that interview, we were talking about how he really likes doing, and now he'll get to do a lot more of them. He likes the kind of thriller, suspense,
horror.
So you primarily, again, the Housemaid is probably going to change this for his career trajectory. But he was a comedy guy.
Yeah.
And I said, did you want to do more of that? And he said, we had a lot of success with the comedy. I know that genre very well. And he said, and you pivot. And he said, ambitious people figure out that this is where you need to go. And it was a really interesting moment in the podcast. He always, the driving force was the success that he was looking for, and he was going to find a way to get to that point, whether it was doing comedy or suspense movies or something else.
Yeah.
And we've been really lucky on this show, too, that people like Paul Feig, it was a regular conversation. There were no airs about this guy. He knew he was sitting in a booth at a little bar in Palm Desert. But I also love the fact that as soon as he put the headset on, he knew what he was supposed to be doing. He knew it was an interview. He knew it was a conversation. He's done it hundreds of times before, but he showed us his personality. He was talking to us as though we were peers rather than some big national interview or something like that. And we get that from a lot of big-name people. They sit down in this seat, and there's not a lot of airs about them.
That is actually that's what a podcast is supposed to be. If you look at the history of podcasts, Mark Maron started this whole thing in a garage.
Yeah.
And it was having a podcast was not supposed to be done in a studio. It's supposed to be a remote.
Let's do a remote.
That was, to me, and when Randy first posed the question, when we were sitting over there having a cheeseburger, he's like, have you ever thought about doing a podcast? I'm like, yeah, I've thought about it, but I don't know how you do. I could set up the board and record it, but I don't know how in the world you get it to go on Spotify and Apple, and luckily John knows all that.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm not sure I want to do all that. But we talked about it, and I said, well, one thing, I'm in a studio all the time. My radio show is done, and it's in my home studio, but it's still a studio environment.
Yeah.
Television is in a studio. I wanted to do it here, someplace fun.
Exactly.
And thankfully, Skip wanted the same thing.
Skip was all about it, and that way, Skip was a terrific interview to kick things off.
I was gonna start with Skip. Actually, I'm sorry, Skip's not here for this. But
Skip's not sorry, he's not here for this.
But Skip started you off with a great interview. I've been covering Coachella since before Coachella. I covered the Pearl Jam concert at the Empire Polo Club in 1993, which was really the inspiration for Coachella. And again, listening to Skip talk about his experiences, I learned something. Just the fact that he started off by saying, we didn't think people were going to come to the desert. Then why did you do it? The way he's talking about it, he goes, we wanted to get the acts that the cool kids wanted. And it's all we had here. No disrespect to the McCallum Theater, and I know that you want them back as a sponsor.
Desperately.
But they have survived, and they have appealed to the country club audience for all of these years, and that has made them stable. they have this incredible 93% attendance rate every first quarter of every year, which places them in the top 10 of theaters much larger than the McCallum Theater. And they do that because they've gotten this reputation of providing material that the country club audiences don't necessarily get anywhere else, because most venues are appealing to young people. So McCallum has found a niche, and they do a great job. But we didn't have the stuff for the cool kids, and they brought it out here, and he was talking about how they suffered the first few years, and then it was just Christmas of 2003. Rick Van Santen had booked Radiohead, and they were just about to announce that we are something special and we're the best music festival in the world. And Rick dies in his sleep. I knew how he died. I had heard that, but hearing it from Skip really, to me, gave it authority.
No, that was a poignant moment in that part. There were a lot of them, I think, but it was. I thought Skip was really open and honest, and most of our guests are. As you say, I don't think they put on a lot of airs. Wasn't sure how much Skip was. We had never done it. It was our first one. Didn't know how much he was going to let his guard down.
Yeah.
The way he talked about Paul and what that relationship meant to him, that was pretty deep.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to me. I've always thought of Skip as one of the cool kids.
Yeah.
I used to see him sitting over in VIP 1 down at the Nest, and he didn't know me from Adam, but I thought he's one of the cool. But you
were inside. That was my nose against the window.
Oh, that was you
looking
pressed
at
up
you and Skip. Yeah.
And Dodie, even though she was a guest on our show, still won't let you in, which is.
I don't think Dodie knows her episode's over.
No. But I thought it was funny to me. Skip, I don't think thought of himself as one of the cool kids for a long time. I think maybe he does now. Maybe he gets dude, you are.
Yeah.
But I thought it was very telling about. I learned a lot about Skip in that interview.
When you came on for your first episode here, did you have that feeling about what we were doing already, that it was just going to be conversation? Was it what you expected it to be?
Pretty much. Fortunately, I had gotten to know you through. This is another something that made me, endeared me to Randy. Before we did
his excessive pot use.
I don't think Bruce considers it excessive.
Yeah, no, excessive?
That was the wrong word. That is the wrong word.
Most people I think Patrick, you're the only guy I know who doesn't do excessive pot use.
I think I get high just enough.
If we're going to talk about character flaws, let's talk that way. Why aren't you doing more cannabis?
I have identified my vice. I enjoy it, and I'm sticking with it.
When the Purple Room starts doing a Monday night cannabis night,
I'll think about it.
This is another thing I like about this is I learn more about you, and I learn more about you just from your interactions and stuff. But in terms of what I expected, I probably wouldn't have been on the show if he hadn't made this admission to me at this dinner that we had. Because he used to work for Countrywide, and Countrywide took my in-laws' farm. They took out a bad subprime loan and wound up underwater, and we wound up in a lawsuit. It affected my life drastically for 4 years, and to some extent it's still affecting my life. And he apologized. He apologized for being part of that, and he was so significantly remorseful about being associated with Countrywide and wanting to do something significant with his life. I thought, this is a guy who has a soul, and he really is sincere about wanting to be a good person. And you have to, I've realized, you have to want and try to be a good person because it doesn't come naturally.
Doesn't to me.
I don't think it comes naturally to most people. But so
and almost never any bankers.
Yeah. So the fact that he's a good person made me want to come on here. So
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about another one of your guys' favorite podcasts. After Skip came along, was there something that really surprised you and made you think that maybe this show has legs?
One of the first ones for me that made me feel like we were legitimate was Bill Geddes. That was a big deal.
That was having Bill Geddes on come and do the podcast, and I'd gotten to know him a little bit over the years.
But talk about who Bill was real quick.
Bill, of course, was the producer for Barbara Walters. He did all of the TV specials that she did. He also invented the television show The View. And he had remarkable insight into TV And he's not a name that most people know because producers seldom get that kind of credit. One of the things I like about 60 Minutes is they still tell you who produced each piece.
Right, yeah.
Because they're integral. But Bill was a master at it, and he knew he knew more about TV than I'll ever learn. That guy was just... And he started at the local television level. He was working at his local station in Oklahoma.
And another one, if anybody could have had heirs, Bill Geddes, right? He bigger than life within the TV industry.
Yeah, but I agree. I think that sort of gave us a little air of legitimacy. We can get real guests. Yeah. This is a
He lived here. That was he was pulling back from his career a little bit, and so it was again that gives him time to reflect on his career. And you guys happened to be at the right spot at the right time, the perfect time, because he died right afterwards. That was so amazing.
A week later.
Yeah.
And it was funny because 2 days before he passed, he called and left me a message telling me that because he touched on where he thought the TV industry was going, and he said it was amazing. He said, I'd love to come back and do another episode. I've been having conversations about that, and I've learned a lot more about it, and I'd love to share it with you guys, and I wish we could have that conversation. But, that was one where I thought now we can ask other guests who may not think that coming and sitting at Skip's Little Bar is what they want to spend their afternoon doing, but we've gotten a lot of people to do it.
Before him, you had Rosie Casals.
Yeah. Yes.
And you haven't had a lot of sports figures on here, but she was again someone who transcended her genre. And again, I learned so much about her because I used to play tennis a lot and tennis fan, and I'm friends with Tommy Tucker, who you should have Tommy Tucker on here sometime.
Ever tell you my story about Tommy Tucker?
No.
So I'm a volunteer at the Gallery Classic at Mission Hills.
Uh-huh.
And I'm standing at the green where I'm supposed to be and keeping people out from behind the ropes and stuff. And there is this old Jaguar that parks down on the street, and this tall old guy gets out of it, and he comes walking up, ducks down under the ropes, and starts walking towards me on the green. And I'm like, sorry, sir, you can't be coming up here. He goes, it's okay. I'm Tommy Tucker. And I go, thank you, Tommy.
Do you know who Tommy is?
I don't.
Oh, sorry.
Tommy Tucker was. No, he still is. He's still alive.
I thought you were going to say tennis pro at Mission Hill.
Oh, no.
He is still alive.
The quintessential tennis bum.
Yes.
I mean, I met him through Tommy Smothers, actually.
Oh, wow.
Tommy Smothers says, there's a guy in this town you got to meet. His name is Tommy Tucker. And this guy, he just goes around the world and he hustles people. And at a time when there was no prize money in professional tennis, he was driving Porsches. he was the tennis instructor for the Annenbergs at Sunnyland. He was also a bartender in San Francisco, and he's just one of the great raconteurs of all time. He's 91 years old now, but I had lunch with him just about a month ago, and he's still got all these stories that are just unbelievable. He taught Wilt Chamberlain tennis, and he says Wilt Chamberlain is the greatest athlete that I've ever seen. He had 150-mile-an-hour serve.
Oh, I bet.
Wow.
The people that he's taught, but He grew up in San Francisco, and he knew Rosie Casals when Rosie Casals was a teenager. And Rosie Casals
she played on the public courts.
She played on the public court. She was poverty-stricken, but she was just so good that everybody realized that she was going to be world-class, and you have to support this person. And she had such a dynamic personality that she could see herself becoming a world champion, and then you got to talk about her rise to fame and rise to success on the show.
We haven't done it much, but I get giddy, a special kind of giddy when we get a sports person on here, because I just don't get to talk about it nearly enough at home.
Yeah.
Talking to you, Kay.
She's not listening.
True.
She might listen to. It's a landmark episode. She might actually listen.
Possibly.
To this one.
Yeah.
But my wife won't. We can say anything we want about Andrea because she's a. She did text me the other day. She was driving in, and she said, "What? And what's the name of your podcast?" Like 3 years in.
Yeah. And we talked a little before we went on air about Diane Shore. Deedles, yeah. And you are obviously a big fan, and you knew enough about her to be able to talk about her rise and her association with Stan Getz, and you talked about when she first came to Palm Springs to perform. She actually talked about staying with Sinatra.
Yeah.
She didn't mention the fact that she was staying with Sinatra because she was performing at the McCallum Theater with Sinatra, the only time that Sinatra ever played the McCallum Theater, and it was because he was touring with Sammy Davis Jr. and Liza Minnelli at that time after Dean Martin had dropped out, and Liza Minnelli couldn't do the show at the McCallum Theater, and so we need another woman here. Who's hot? Diane Shure is the hottest in the country, and so that was an amazing show. He had, in addition to Sammy Davis Jr. and Diane Shure, he had Mel Torme.
Oh my goodness!
And Mel Torme gets out there and he's nervous as hell. He goes, "Frank Sinatra is on the wing."
I have never thought about something like that.
You never like Mel Torme is Mel Torme.
Yeah,
Nothing's going to make Frank Sinatra over there. Yeah,
and Frank's over there like this.
Yeah. And Diane didn't even mention, the Deedles didn't even mention her performance there. And frankly, Mel Torme was so astounding that he overshadowed Sammy Davis and Sinatra and Diane Shure.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
He got up for that show. It was a really special show. And it's, again, kind of sad that he never performed there again. That was 1988. And he performed for another 7 years, but he never performed again at the McCallum Theater.
Is there a reason why?
Probably because it was being called the Bob Hope Cultural Center at the time. And he had a little bit of a rivalry with Bob Hope. So anyway. Okay, so moving on. Do we need to mention Todd Goldberg? I think he's as big of a fan as...
Todd told me at a function a week ago that two things he remembered about that podcast. It was one of the most fun interviews he's ever done. And it's the only one he almost died.
Yeah, he did. He was having an allergic reaction to a dairy product, I think.
Yeah, he had to go outside and take Benadryl in the middle of the podcast.
Wow, that's a behind-the-scenes thing.
He was like really in distress, like to the point where I'm like, do we need to call 911?
He goes, "I'll be right back." Yeah.
He's our literary celebrity at this point,
Yep.
and he's a funny guy. So.
He's hilarious, and the stories, and also I think the way he tells those stories about his mom and who she was associated with. It's just he's got quite the story to tell, and a lot of people may be like, I don't necessarily want to tell these stories, but he does, and he relishes in telling them.
So I don't know the whole story, but Todd told me he's working on something with Netflix right now. And Martin Scorsese is involved.
Oh.
So
I hope it's not about his mom.
Martin's or
no?
Todd's? I'd like to see Martin do something about Todd's mom. That would be fascinating.
His mother sat next to me at the Desert Sun for many years.
Oh, that's right.
She worked under me, actually, as I was her editor for many years. And she was one of the funniest people you ever met. In fact, when we first got our computers, and the first time we discovered email, and we would be emailing back and forth, and we'd be laughing all the time, and nobody understood why we were always laughing. And we just figured that this is a great tool for comedy.
But it's a fad.
And then we realized there was nobody else who was doing comedy. But
people are using this for serious shit?
I loved his story about his mom wondering how she could always dress the way she could, working part-time at Saks or something like that.
No, she was not working part-time at Saks. She was going there and telling them that she was going to be wearing their clothes at a society event.
Got it.
The galas,
And then from what she told me, she would return those clothes. And Todd kind of intimated that she was developing a wardrobe.
Yes. Or the boyfriend.
The boyfriend would buy it for,
What size shoe do you wear, Todd?
And
I love that bit about the guy selling the shoes.
They're out in the back in his trunk.
Yeah.
He talked about his mother dating Fat Philly, and a mobster who was a very colorful character in this town at the time. And somebody, I'll never forget him. We were at the Ocotillo Lodge, which had great jazz at the time. Joe Masters and Pat Rizzo and Mike Costley were performing there. And Fat Philly would be, in an area of the word was fuck, of course. And he says, just got back from Russia. He goes, big money in Russia, Bruce. Big money in Russia. He was talking about the black market. Oh, God.
He was going to get you in on the ground floor then.
Yeah, he was trying to, yeah.
That reminds me of another show we did, David Junk.
Oh, yes.
Telling the story of he took over Universal Records in Russia.
Yeah.
And telling the story of going with the police to break up some big warehouse that had all the
selling the knockoffs,
bootleg CDs,
yeah, the bootleg stuff.
And the cops walk in there, and all of a sudden the Russian army comes this way, and David's, okay, we're done. I'm out of here.
Can I tell you what I liked about the Gary Keefe interview? And it was
John has listed that as his number one show.
Number one
show. One of the things that was an innocuous question, you asked it, what did your father do, Gary? And he goes, he stuttered a little bit. And then I wrote this down. He goes, he worked for a big company out of Chicago. He ran the Western United States. And they did everything from jukeboxes to cigarette machines to the commissaries at the movie studio, vending machines. And I'm thinking, jukeboxes. Who ran the jukeboxes? Oh yeah, it was a mob out of Chicago. That's right. And who did all the vending machines? Oh yeah, that's right. It was a mob out of Chicago. What did your father do, Gary? Oh God. So I'm dying for the follow-up interview with Gary Keefe, so you can discuss some.
I'm not morally safer. I'm sorry. And until I get my Barry Manilow tickets.
Yeah.
We should get Gary back on the show.
I'd love to have Gary back on the show.
There was another great storyteller who had a famous mom as well that was on the show very early on, and that was Fred Bell.
Oh, yeah. Fred's a great storyteller.
He told some good stories that ranged from his younger working days at SeaWorld in San Diego.
The Emperor Penguins.
With the Penguin and the Andy Williams special, to also talking about what it took to bring the F-117A jet to the museum, the Air Museum in Palm Springs. So.
No, Fred is a great storyteller. He's been such a tremendous asset to that museum.
Yeah.
I mean, they're virtually inseparable. That's one of those people. I don't know how they will one day have to replace Fred, but that's going to be a really hard. I would not want to be on the board when I have to make that decision.
I wonder how many of our guests have had relatives that had so many of our guests seem to have had parents that were something in this town at some time. Todd's, Fred Bell's mom. I wonder how many. Bruce?
Lucy.
Lucy
has a very famous
I've heard of her mom.
Yeah.
One of my most favorite is Larry Luckenbill.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
When he came on to talk about his book, he's just such an interesting, fascinating,
erudite,
but empathetic human being. Yeah. He makes you feel like you've been friends forever, and he's so delighted to sit down and chat with you. I just really thoroughly enjoy any time spent with him.
And at least with me, but you know that he's the smartest guy at the table, at whatever table he's sitting.
Yes.
Yeah, one of my questions was going to be, what was your favorite, Larry or Lucy Luckenbill?
Lucy was phenomenal as well. They're both really.
Yeah.
Lucy knows this. Of course, Larry, because I'm such a Star Trek fan, that Larry is my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm guessing that we were the first podcast in history to have the term fire hose tits.
From Lucy.
100%.
From Lucy.
From Lucy. That was hysterical.
Yeah.
My God.
Yeah. And Larry talking about how he had sex with a man to study up for boys in the band. That's taking the method.
That's a method actor right there.
It's taken into another level.
Yeah, I stopped just short in my acting.
And as somebody who knew Carrie Fisher personally, I was really surprised when we had one of our early guests on the show who surprised me, telling us a story about how she was actually going to be considered for the Princess Leia
Judith Chapman
role. Yeah.
She was doing theater in Florida, and she got a call to fly back to California to do an audition. So she auditioned for the part of Princess Leia, and because we did ask, it was like, what are some of the great roles that you had, but are there some that you didn't get that you? And she was like, Yeah.
Leia. Yeah.
She tells that story, and I'm like, wow.
was
And
like,
I've known
wow.
Judith for a long time, and I didn't know that story.
And that takes us to Joyce Bulifant.
Who
Yeah.
I dearly.
That was one of my top 10.
Yeah, mine too. Mine
Yeah.
too. And the fact that she could have been Florence Henderson's character in the Brady Bunch.
She could have
Right.
been Mrs. Brady.
Yeah,
The,
yeah.
the best part was the 2 jokes she told after the podcast.
Yes. She loves to tell dirty jokes.
I don't remember. I've known her for
Filthy.
a time, but
Filthy
yeah,
jokes.
Yeah. So are you going to tell us? Or you-
I'll tell you the joke.
Okay.
But it's better when Joyce, because she has that
That
voice.
voice. Yeah.
Who was it that said to her, when you tell a dirty joke, it sounds like a fairy tale? There's some other famous actress.
Somebody told her that. But the joke she told, these 2 old guys living in a retirement home, nursing home, and one says to the other, says, Fred, Jean from downstairs. Fred's, yeah, I know Jean from downstairs. I took her out for ice cream. Fred's like, oh, that's great. And he goes, when we're coming back from ice cream, I held her hand, and we held hands. We walked all the way back holding hands. And Fred's like, oh, that's great. And then walked her to her room, and we sat down, and at the end of the bed, and we sang, Bye Bye Birdie. And Fred's great. That's terrific. And a couple of weeks later, Fred comes in. He turns to his room and says, hey, Jean from downstairs. And he goes, yeah, of course. He goes, well, I took her out for ice cream. And his buddy says, you did? He goes, yeah, I took her out for ice cream. We had ice cream, and I held her hand. We walked all the way back holding hands. Yeah? And then I walked her to her room, and we sat down at the end of her bed, and I didn't know the words to Bye Bye Birdie, so we fucked. And she collects jokes like that. And she'll tell them, and that voice is just amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
Another one I think we need to talk about. I believe that we were almost personally responsible for one of our guests just exploding nationally right after he was on our episode. Sean LaBelle. Yeah. Has he ever thanked you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Well,
he does.
He hasn't said anything to me.
No.
But what happened to Sean right after?
Yeah, his one of his songs, he's a smooth jazz artist, and
Yeah.
it went to #1 on the smooth jazz
And
chart.
now he's got his own radio show and
He's doing
his own network, and it all started here in the corner.
It all started. Sean owes us a great deal.
He does.
And probably a finder's fee, I feel like.
I would expect.
I'm having dinner with him tomorrow night. I will extract
Thank
said
you.
finder's fee from him.
The idea of being a smooth jazz artist and having your career explode is a non-sequitur.
It is non sequitur.
It is kind of.
No, Sean, he played for Jody Watley for years and was on tour with her, and he's done a lot of really cool stuff.
He was also responsible for what I think was one of the funniest lines out of 150 episodes when he talked about sleeping upstairs at Anita Pointer's house.
And seeing Ed McMahon naked across
And
the street.
Oh, my
he
God,
says, I throw open the curtains, I look across the street, Ed McMahon is standing in front of the picture window completely naked, and Patrick Evans says,
Here's my Johnny.
Wow. See, because I really didn't have an interest in smooth jazz, I didn't get to there.
Oh, you should have. No, that's
well,
the
the
payoff for that
funny thing
episode.
is, Patrick and I spend the next 2 minutes like spitting out our drinks and trying to catch our breath from
And
what he
Sean
said.
missed it.
Sean didn't
Sean
even
was
hear
in the
it.
middle of another story, and he didn't hear me say that. He just kept going.
When I think of the name Sean, I think of Reed Milanovich.
As a matter of fact, I wanted to ask you about your master's thesis on this show, Bruce.
Reed was a very good interview.
Yeah.
But Reed,
Has anybody ever set you up in an interview the way Bruce set me up?
Oh no, Bruce
That was almost cool,
You
wasn't
were excited about it. Oh, I've got all kinds of research.
I actually ended up reading a half of a master thesis.
You didn't notice it wasn't authored by our
I
guest.
didn't even look.
Tell him the story.
So Bruce calls me,
Bruce knew that we were going to have Reed on.
the chairman of the
Tribal
Agua
chair of the Agua
Caliente
Caliente.
tribe, and I called Bruce and I said, hey, and I didn't really know Reed, anything I should talk to him about? And he goes, yes, he wrote this thesis about, and I don't remember exactly what it was.
What
but
was
it
the
had
thesis about, Bruce?
About how the Indians were planning, or there was a planned invasion of San Diego and Los Angeles, and the Agua Caliente Indians were partly responsible for thwarting this invasion, this Indian invasion of San Diego and Los Angeles at a time when there were more Native Americans in Southern California than there were white people. But they understood that there was going to be a lot of white people coming across the country, and it would be best for their survival if they negotiated a settlement rather than did an uprising. But this is something that really we haven't talked about in history. The fact that the native tribes in Southern California were uniting for an invasion against the white folks in San Diego and Los Angeles. And Sean did a whole thesis on this. And it was really interesting. And I told somebody I think Melissa, that should be a movie. It's a fabulous story.
But you gave this as research on Reed Milanovich, but Reed didn't write it. His brother did.
So I read half of it, and I'm thinking, I can't wait.
Well, you called me and you said, "I've got this," and I'm like, I had no idea. I'm like, wow, I didn't know Reed wrote that. And that's really good.
So I asked him. So Reed wanted to talk about this thesis. Would you like to talk about it?
I had read this thesis long before this conversation.
He says, no, but my brother who wrote it, you might want to ask him. And then I said, do you have any opinion on it? And he goes, no, I'll leave that to my brother.
Yeah, so that began.
I thought Reed was very guarded in his interview with us.
Yeah, he was.
We've had a few of those. We've had some people.
Most people are not. And I was just with Reed over the weekend doing the Chairman Milanovich legacy hike. It's still thoroughly enjoying it. And he brought out his 3.5-month-old son, Cooper. And you performed the wedding?
One of the best things for me when I do a wedding is down the road when they start having kids. Yeah. It's really cool.
Oh, Cooper's super cute. They're cute.
Reed has done a great job with that tribal council, and they've come a long way. And, of course, everybody reveres his father, Richard.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Really, you're just deflecting from the fact that you gave me really bad information.
Yes, and you've been throwing me under the bus consistently ever since then. The most recently with Brian Ray, actually.
Yeah, actually something happened there, too.
I was not that far off on that one.
But not that far off.
Vegan, vegetarian. That's about how far off it was.
Yes.
Yeah, and you said that you actually made it sound like I had told you this. I was quoting something in a story that I had just read that said that Paul McCartney made his crew, his staff, and his band members eat, I told you, vegan food. And it turns out I was correct, except for the fact that he makes his staff eat vegetarian food. The catering is always vegetarian.
What?
He's not saying that he makes them eat that on their off hours. On tour.
On tour.
Yeah.
And when he's providing the meal.
Yeah.
But you understand, once I've been burned.
So Brian Ray, that's another great guest.
Oh, that was a good one.
Yeah.
Paul McCartney's guitarist.
Yeah.
But as I told you, I was almost equally excited to find out that he led Etta James band.
Yes.
Because I was a huge Etta James fan.
Not to mention Monster Mash.
Monster Mash.
Exactly. I didn't know that
Kicker
was
5.
the Crypt Kicker 5.
Yeah.
No, with that, we've had some really great musical guests. I thought, and we both talked about this, Dolores Robinson was an amazing guest.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's another something I learned so much about.
That was a top 10 for me.
Scratch number 9 off my list to put her in.
What was number 9 on your list, John?
I don't remember.
Jason Stewart.
Jason Stewart.
Now. Don't misquote me.
All I did was mention his name.
Why don't you expand on how you feel about Jason Stewart?
All right, we can tell. I don't think Jason will listen. And
I have to say, because this was something, Patrick and I have both had a lot of experience doing various interviews with Jason, and I thought that he would be a really great guest. He's
Jason
a funny
just walked
guy.
in. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, somebody walked in. Wow, somebody walked in.
But when he sat here, he ate during the whole interview.
He was eating during the whole interview. The first thing he said to Randy was, "Wow, that's a really ugly shirt."
Yeah.
And,
That's a go-to line of his, actually.
oh, is it?
Yeah, he does that in his act. Yeah.
What
It
was-
went downhill from there as my shirt began to wear his hamburger.
Food.
Oh, yeah. You had
As
to do
he
a lot
talked while eating.
The other thing about, like, when I have Jason, again, we have him on Eye in the Desert. It's 3 minutes. He's usually promoting a comedy show, and he's super up, and he's in performance mode.
Yeah.
So and I've never seen him when he's not. So I thought that's who Jason is.
Yeah.
He was not that for our podcast. He was much more low-key. I think he was maybe in a little bit of a bad mood.
And I had that shirt on.
Yeah.
You know who was great? Jim J. Bullock.
Jim
was
J. Bullock
good.
was
So much fun.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. But by the way, Jason, if you do listen, we're not knocking you. We still love you, but it was... We thought you could have had a better experience on our podcast.
I have found that most stand-up comedians that you talk to, after you get past their shtick, they're not really witty people. They're very good at delivering lines. And I've had one of my worst interviews with Steve Martin.
Wow.
What?
Steve Martin, yeah. He just talks seriously in an interview. And the funniest part about that was that after the PR person hung up, he didn't hang up. And so I was listening to him talk to a woman that was in the room with him, and he's going, I don't think that went well.
And did you say, no, it didn't, Steve?
You are correct.
I stayed on the line as long as I could to listen to this conversation that he was having.
I got to tell you, though, who was really bad at doing that, as much as so many people here in the Coachella Valley loved him. I used to be Bill Feingold's boss.
Oh, yeah.
And he did an interview one night with a politician from Texas who he was just bathing in glory while talking crap behind her back off the air, except that she had not fully hung up from a phone call when he basically finished the interview and continued to talk stink about her. And then I really heard about it.
I bet.
Yeah.
Hey, one that I wanted to bring up, Danny Bonaducci,
That was
Danny
a
Partridge.
Fun
An
interview.
incredible get.
And one of the things that I remember so much about him is, you remember at the beginning, he didn't want to do any more podcasts.
Yeah.
And then one day his wife called and said, hey, he's ready. And we asked him, why'd you change your mind? And he said, I don't think I'm done being famous yet.
Yeah, I'm not done being famous yet.
Now, we both laughed thinking that he thought that this podcast was going to help him in any way. But I thought that was a really interesting thing for him to say.
I will say he was a terrific guest, wildly entertaining.
Yeah.
But months later, I follow him on Instagram. Months later, I got a little note from Danny on Instagram. He had accidentally run across my radio program.
Yeah.
And he's, man, is there anything you can't do? The podcast, your TV show, the radio, you're great. I love it.
Danny Partridge said that to
I thought
you.
that was really, for him to take the time to do that, really meant a lot to me. I thought that was really special.
He asked me for your email address.
Who was it who got Danny Bonaducci?
I was another one. The woman from the La Quinta Historical Society saw a posting from his wife, reached out to her. And,
Do you think maybe we should have her on?
I've asked her.
Oh,
I've asked her a
okay,
couple
good,
of times.
'cause I feel
she
like
was
we-
actually there the night you two did the thing at
The mob
Palm
thing.
Desert, the mob thing. Yeah, she was actually there that night.
Sinatra thing.
Sinatra thing. It wasn't.
right.
Mob,
Mob,
Sinatra, tomato.
Interchangeable.
My Freudian slip is showing.
He's not still alive, is he?
No, but people who really like him are, including Nancy.
That's true.
Then your guest, Nelda Linsk.
Yes.
Yeah.
She was. I love Nelda.
Yeah, I do too.
Talking to Nelda is like exploring that entire period of history of the 60s, the 70s.
And
in
you
this
know,
valley.
recommended Nelda and actually made the connection for us with her, and did the same with a number of really amazing guests that we've had on. Is somebody who's been on the show themselves probably as much as anybody, and that was photographer Michael Childers.
Yes.
And very grateful to Michael for all of the wonderful connections he's hooked us up with, including Ron Nicewainer, who was just here. And yeah, we've had so many amazing people who come from his Rolodex. So
Well, listen, that's another one of those ones. You guys are probably all a little jaded about stuff like that, but I look at somebody like Michael Childers, and I just can't believe I'm sitting across the table from somebody like that. It's amazing.
It is.
Bruce, you think we can do another 150 episodes? Would you listen?
I'll probably be dead by that time.
Wow.
It only took us 3 years. Bruce. You're not that old.
Bruce.
You just need to stop playing basketball in your
I
driveway.
think what he's saying is if he listens to another 150 episodes,
It'll be the end
he'll
of
be
him.
dead.
I think absolutely.
Let's talk about who would you like to have on here?
we've invited many times and just have had a flurry of things that got in the way. But of course, one of our most high-profile neighbors that we've invited on, and the husband of past guest, is Barry Manilow.
Love to have Barry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Josh Homme, I'd love to have on here.
Josh is-
Billy Gibbons, I'd love to have Billy Gibbons.
We may have a hard time getting Josh.
Why?
I did an Eye on the Desert interview, and I called him by the wrong name.
Oh, did you call him Kieran
McCulkin?
McCulkin?
No, I did not. I mispronounced his last name because I'm not a. I'm,
You didn't
like, it's not my genre.
You didn't put the E in.
Yeah.
You called him homie?
I didn't call him. I just called him home. Home. I thought it was the French pronunciation. You dropped that.
Who else I'd like to have on that we haven't been able to book yet, but maybe now that all of the hullabaloo is fading, is Abby Carter, the winner of American Idol.
Sure.
Yeah, she's been on. She'd be a great guest. There are a lot. As we were sitting here talking, I was thinking of, oh gosh, we should ask them, and then now I can't.
Well, the
we
gal
should
who plays
also-
Wednesday on.
Yeah, Ortega.
We're never going to get Jenna
Jenna
Ortega.
Ortega.
She's one of the hottest. Probably we're
Yeah.
never going to get
Right.
Jenna Ortega.
This is
Who else we
Big
should-
Conversations Little Bar.
You know
It
who
is.
we should also
Exactly.
have on is somebody who is a part-time resident here in the Valley, and that's Tim Cook.
Yeah, just do a remote down at the Madison Club, and you can get Irving Azoff. You can get Bieber.
Let's do a remote.
There's so many of them down there. That's where all the celebrities, the huge celebrities, are all at the Madison Club now. And that tried to get the Desert Sun to do a story on the Madison Club being it's the equivalent of Thunderbird Country Club in the 1950s in the 21st century. There are just so many. And I remember Jerry Weintraub was an owner there, and his dream was to make that the musicians' country club, and he did it. He's got the head of Universal Studios. He's got Tim Cook. He's got Paul Tillett lives down there. The number of people who are huge who live at the Madison Club and the Desert Sun couldn't get a source to talk about the people who live there. And you're letting that stop you from doing the story?
Isn't that how journalism works? I give up. I
One
can't
of us
talk
should
to
just
anybody.
move in.
Man, the mansions, have you been there?
I haven't yet.
Oh, my God. Those are real mansions. We don't have real mansions in the Coachella Valley. We have fabulous pieces of mid-century modern architecture, but not the expanse. They have moats. They have castles and moats at the Madison Club.
Wow.
Yeah.
So let me ask you one last thing, and this is self-serving, but I've had this feeling over the last 6 months or so, and we've been talking about it, that when I look at the list of people that we've interviewed and the kind of conversations that we've had, it feels like we've touched on something in a short period of time that people who've been here a long time, like yourself, were doing, talking the culture, the entertainment. Do you feel like the podcast has taken some sort of a role in this area if people wanted to listen to it, where they'd hear more about the culture and the entertainment? And
yes, maybe that was in the first version of this podcast, but that's one of the things that the parallel that I drew to what I did, because today you do a feature story on a celebrity, you do a profile, and then you've done them. I can't do him again.
Yeah.
But I had to call him, so I got to do updates all the time, and I created this bridge between the average person and the celebrities who lived around here. And to me, you should be bringing more people back to do follow-up interviews so that you can have that conversation and people can feel like, people always ask, are there any celebrities who live here anymore? Yeah, there's a lot of them. There's just nobody talking to them. Why aren't they talking to them?
A lot of people who've done the podcast won't come back for a second time, but we should talk to the ones who will.
pretty soon it's just going to be Bruce and Michael Childers, just alternating weeks.
I'll bring in guests like Jerry Ring, and
Jerry was good.
Jerry was good.
Jerry's
That was a good show.
hysterical.
yeah,
Jerry is hysterical.
it really made us feel good. Patrick said that we were phenomenal, so that we felt like, oh, that's quite
That
a
was
compliment.
the word of the week.
But that was a really specific podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about.
Another thing I would point out
Wait,
is
let him finish here.
He's pumping up
talking about
Bruce.
me now.
Talking about
Liberace.
Liberace's legacy here and his complicated legacy in the LGBTQ community.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really fascinating podcast. Jerry Ring could do a whole podcast on why he's gotten thrown off of cruise ships.
But I brought it into perspective. And Jerry was the authority because he worked with him,
Yeah.
and he could talk about his personality. And I could put into perspective what Liberace did and the fact that he was also a huge animal lover. And so there were so many interesting things that I learned about Liberace just putting on a show for Amy's Purpose at this place where they filmed his movie. I like that idea too, where you don't necessarily, it would break it up from doing profiles to doing themed shows, where you could talk about a number of things within a theme. I think that would be a good way to just extend the scope of this show.
We tried to dip our toe in the political arena for
That's what I was going to
20
say.
minutes.
Is that we've done a really great job of not letting this show get political at all. But we've had a few guests who've been on. One who was a candidate for Senate.
Christina Pascucci. Well, she was on television out here, and she's a friend of Skip's, and
Right.
she was going to run for. She did run for Senate.
Barbara Boxer.
Mary Bono and Barbara Boxer.
Yeah.
And those didn't really go deep into politics. They went deep into the depth of the people who were in politics.
But you bring up the Barbara. That's one of my favorites.
Me too.
She has such an amazing story, and she was a terrific guest. And it wasn't about politics. It was about her.
That was the one that was wanted to be the most political was Cliff Clavin. And we steered John Ratzenberger.
Yeah.
we steered him kind
That
of.
was I liked that show.
It was a great show.
Yeah.
It was a good show.
Once he figured out what we were doing here,
Yeah, he was a little reticent at first.
fantastic
Yeah,
show.
yeah.
It was fun.
Yeah.
This has been a fun little trip down memory lane. Thank you, Bruce.
It's been my pleasure. It's been fun for me.
Do you want to come back as a guest again?
Can I?
Sure. See you at 300.
Do you have anything to talk about?
I'll try to work out some notes.
He's doing obits. People die all the time. He's got plenty of time.
He'll do our in memoriam show. I hope I'm not on it.
We hope so, too. We hope that you are not.
I just want to say that I've done a lot of this at a national as well as local level, and I've had the privilege of meeting and talking with a lot of movie stars and musicians and community leaders and even presidents of the United States, but nothing in my career has been as fun as doing this show consistently. It's really it's been my pleasure to get to work with you guys and to help put this out, because I think this is the kind of stuff that people do want to hear. They don't want to hear about all the muck going on in the world all the time. And who wouldn't want to get to know your neighbors when they're as cool as the people we talk to?
Yeah, thank you for that, John. And everything. How many episodes would we have had on the air if it wasn't for John?
None.
Not one single
You would have had
episode.
to have come over to one of our houses and had to listen to it on our cassette recorder.
I use a quote from Bob Hope all the time when I just ran into him at the Plaza Theater. He was watching the Follies, and I happened to be there. And he goes, "These are all locals?" And I go, and I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "You don't know who your neighbors are, do you?"
I love that.
That's great.
No, the first 150 have been phenomenal. John, thank you
Thank
for
you,
all of the
John.
hard work
Thank
that you
you.
put into it. Randy, so appreciate being able to do this with you. Bruce, thanks for
Thanks for
bringing
listening.
perspective to what we do, and to our listeners. Thank you very much. We are going to continue to tell these stories because people ask me all the time, "What's your podcast about?" It's about our guests.
Yeah.
It is just about that. I always say it's about people in the Coachella Valley that you know or that you should know.
Okay, and now the sad news.
We're going to take a little break.
We're going to take a little break. We're going to take the next few months and start to put some stuff in the can and be back in the fall.
But we've
And-
got some great guests lined up,
Yep.
and we're going to continue.
And if you
to-
missed any of these shows that have happened over the last few years, now's a great time to catch up.
Scroll through, you're going to see names that you recognize. Listen to their podcasts. All of our guests have been gracious and fun, and it's just a joy to do it. So
And
we
I
look
think
forward.
we're actually starting our next season this fall off with somebody who was a star on Dallas.
Ooh.
That's the story.
Yeah.
Are you talking about Linda Gray?
Yeah.
Larry Hagman couldn't make it.
Yeah, Larry's not going to join us,
He's taking a nap.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
But we appreciate your listenership, and all the hard work that goes into this. Is the payoff is that it's fun for people to listen to.
And I will continue providing false research for your
That is excellent. We like the false research.
Could you
I particularly
provide
enjoy
some of
it.
to him?
And also your critiques. We really appreciate those as well.
We do.
All right, thank you. You've been listening to Big Conversations Little Bar. Our thanks to Skip Page and the entire team here at Little Bar, who are our hosts and make us feel welcome every week. And please, when you're in Palm Desert, stop by, come in and have a drink and enjoy Skip in person. Thanks for listening. This is Big Conversations Little Bar.
Big Conversations, Little Bar is a production of the Mutual Broadcasting System. This podcast is available in audio and video format. Visit our website at www.bigconversationslittle.bar.com. New episodes are released every Monday.
Athletes and dreamers, stars of the screen, leaders and builders, and all in between, sharing their journeys, how they've come this far. It's Big Conversations, Little Bar, at Big Conversations, Little Bar.